Have you ever wondered how to make an asset in ToonSquid? Have you seen all those fancy people and their fancy animations with their fancy assets? Well, I can teach you how to make it. So, let's get right into it, because I hate having to watch intros on tutorials. First, I start with a sketch and a reference, as you can see in this recording. The object I'm going to be making is a pudding toy that you guys have probably seen before, I don't know. Just a reminder that it does not have to be perfect, as you can see here. I'm just fixing it over and over again because it really is a pain to have to do all this stuff with the vector tool, so yeah. When adding accessories, I don't like to erase the lines from the body so I can still trace over that part in the future. In the sketch, I also like to include limbs and faces so I don't have to do all this extra work later on, but you don't have to if you don't want to. After doing the sketch, I like to lower the opacity and choose the color palette, so that's what you're gonna see me do here, I guess. Now we're going to get started on line art. What I do is I pick the outline color and I go into the vector tool, which you can see me on right now. The vector tool is basically like an outline tool. You can use it to make clean and straight lines. This is also unscripted, if you couldn't already tell, so yeah. After selecting the vector tool, I add another layer on top of the sketch and I start selecting. Make sure that it's on freehand instead of ellipse. That's what confused me at first, so yeah. I personally like to customize the width of the stroke, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And now you can start working on the line art. Just go over the sketch. Also, if something is round or, something, it's not automatically going to turn out round. You need to round it yourself. So just do squares for now. Now, in order to round, select the little dots that you want to round and select asymmetric, symmetric, or disconnected. It doesn't really matter which, but I usually select symmetric for things that need to be, symmetric, or asymmetric for things that need to be asymmetric. You can do that forever. You can do that forever. You can do that for whatever needs to be round. Now add another layer for the other parts of the object. Make sure not to make all the parts on the same layer. You can do the same thing with the vector and change the color if you need to. I did most of the assets off camera, but yeah, you can see that, so. Now I'm going to get started on shading. What I do is select the darker shade I used, I made. What I do next is I duplicate the vectorized layer, the asset layer. After that, I lower the opacity of the filling and I add another layer and add it on masking. Or toggle mask, yeah. I do that so that whenever I do the shading, it stays on the filling layer, and yeah. After doing that, I add the dots and, the layers and stuff. But what I'm going to do is going to be very different. So basically, I'll fill it with the light, and I'm not doing it right now, but I'm going to lower the opacity of the stroke, and then I go into fill and select the gradient. You don't have to do this, but I do it because it resembles my drawing style. Basically what I do is I add the lighter color and then on one side of the gradient, and then add the base color on the other side so that it looks like the lighter color is fading in. After I do that, I lower the opacity all the way on the stroke. I pretty much have the same process with the shading, so yeah, it gets pretty easy. After I do all that, I go on to naming all of the parts. If you don't know the name of some of the parts, yeah, it doesn't matter. As long as it describes, the part. Now we're going to move on to hierarchy. If your object has a ton of layers, I would recommend moving them all onto hierarchy. First, put your main body onto the hierarchy, and then add all the extras on top of that. That'll make sure so it doesn't move around by itself. So when the main body moves, everything else moves. I never actually ended up using these thick limbs because I thought they looked a little bit tacky. I need to learn how to draw them better, but yeah. I don't think you really need a tutorial on how to separate the limbs if you already know how to really or if you already have experience in animating objects. But separate the eyes, the mouth, the hands, and the legs, and that's pretty much it. So now I'm just showing it all off, and now you have your asset. I'm going to show you how to export it soon. First, move all of the layers into a group. Then copy the group, go into a new project, and paste the group in that project that you're working on. And there you go. Now you can make a super fancy animation with a super fancy asset. Have a good day, or night, or evening. It really doesn't matter. I just hope you have a good one.